Welcome to the Lead Pedal Podcast with your host, Bruce Outridge, where he talks all things trucking. Now let's get rolling.
Hey everybody, how are we doing today? Welcome to another edition of Lead Pedal Podcast. And this is a Turnback Tuesday episode. You know what that means? All right, folks. Turn back the clocks. Clean up the spokes. This is another edition of Turnback Tuesdays with your host, Bruce Outridge. All right, and this is episode number 1016. And today we've got some special, today we're going to talk about the first convoy. And you're probably wondering, geez, are we going to talk about the Ottawa convoy? No, we are not. When was the first convoy, though? This is a history lesson here, and it may not be when you think. So we'll tell you all about it right after this. All right. So when was the first convoy? When was our first convoy here? Well, you actually may think that you think when it is because we've all been hearing of a certain convoy. But there was another convoy. And this one was in, and actually the first convoy is in 1919. That's right, Transcontinental Motor Convoy. And this one had a young lieutenant colonel named Dwight Eisenhower, who later became the president. Anyway, it was the first Army Transcontinental Motor Convoy. The expedition consisted of 81 Army vehicles that crossed the United States from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco, a venture covering a distance of 3,251 miles in 62 days. 62 days. That's right. The expedition was manned by 24 officers and 258 enlisted men and was to test the mobility of the military during wartime. So it wasn't about a protest. It was about testing to see how flexible they were as movement. And as an observer for the War Department, Eisenhower learned firsthand of the difficulties faced in traveling great distances on roads that were impassable and resulted in frequent breakdowns of military vehicles. The early experiences influenced his later decisions concerning the building of the interstate highway system during his presidential administration. So there you go. That's the very first one. Now, you probably have heard of another one, and you're thinking, this is, you know what, Bruce, there's one that's more towards trucking, and you're right. And it is. And I can't think of one that's more towards trucking than one that actually inspired the highway system. But you know what? Of course, in 1970, we had the big one with the fuel prices. And the strike started with one driver. He was mad as hell about OPEC's oil crisis and turned off his engine and got on his CB radio. Now, so that happened at 10 p.m. on December 3rd, 1973. 37-year-old trucker from Overland Park, Kansas, named J.W. Edwards, stopped his truck suddenly in the middle of an Interstate 80 near Blacksley, Pennsylvania, picked up a CB radio microphone. The insurrection he was about to start using his now famous handle, River Rat, would give America's independent truckers their first national voice and along the way elevate them to folk hero status. Now, that is true. That is true. Look what he's inspired. He inspired the Convoy song. He inspired the movie. Edwards was beyond frustrated and scared for his livelihood His job hauling meat from the Midwest to New York had become an agonizing slog because of the oil embargo levied by Middle Eastern petroleum cartels, and the United States, for its support of Israel, had dramatically jacked up diesel fuel prices. With rationing imposed, he was stopping at virtually every filling station on his route. Worse still, the federal government was considering a national maximum speed limit of 55, which meant losing money lost due to slower limits, and that's why they got on that. So you know what? Some pretty interesting things there, and now you know the real story behind the real story behind the convoy, and it's not just us. All right, so let me tell you about how long this one lasted. The nationwide strike that started in the middle of the highway lasted 3 days, with the federal government initially shrugging it off to a problem to the states, and then this is starting to look a lot like Ottawa. But in Ohio, the governor deployed the National Guard to remove the trucks by force and to use tear gas to disperse drivers. Some leaders met with truckers in Pennsylvania. A sympathetic governor sat down with Edwards and his colleagues on December 5th. And his first job was driving a coal job. Cities say would work more fuel allocated for rigs. A promise that temporarily modified the strikers in 3-hour meeting in Washington, D.C. He said he can honestly be and fair. Edwards said he would do all he can. So now he says, afterwards, with the help of a high-powered Coast Guard CB transmitter, River Rat broadcast a cool it message for several hours, calling an end to the strikes, but not all obeyed. And the truckers got organized December 13th and 14th, and they kept it going. They need to organize, and that's when they became the Owner-Operators Independent Driver Association, or better known as OIDA today. So if you want to know how this all started, there you go. There you go. So OIDA started back in those days, 73, 74, and it changed everything. The government began to recognize small independent truckers as a force of with groups that can, get together quickly. And now they've been on the radar for a long time, showing us the right ways to go. So there you go. That's the first convoy, and hopefully there won't be a whole lot more, but I got a feeling we haven't seen the end of them. But as you know, Ottawa was probably the latest one and inspired a bunch of other ones too. And you know what? There's nothing like a whole bunch of trucks to stop stuff as it goes. All right, so there you go. Hopefully that helps you. Thanks for listening. And hey, have you heard of our fan club? Why not join the fan club? Hey, if you've not become a fan club member yet, well, you want to get into the mix for sure. All you got to do is go to the Lead Pedal Podcast fanclub.com and check it out. Or you can go to any of our other places like leadpedalradio.com or the leadpedalpodcast.com. Check it out. Get involved. Get a way to get free giveaways, get shout-outs, and participate, and get some of your coolest tunes played. The fan club is for our great members who support our shows. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you're not already a fan club member, you want to check it out, do it through the app, do it through our Facebook group, or do it online at the Lead Pedal Podcast fanclub.com. So there you go. Join our fan club and join us on social as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find us on TikTok, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And check out our new platform for Lead Pedal Radio, mixcloud.com. Download that app. There's the app you should download. All right, my friends, we'll talk to you later. Be good out there and stay away from the convoys, right?
This has been another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. For more information or to subscribe to the podcast, visit theleadpedalpodcast.com and be sure to follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter.